Was there a particular story arc or group of issues within Hellblazer that sort of inspired your creation of, or the direction of the story when you started this idea?
I mean, I had been reading Constantine since he was introduced in Swamp Thing. And that early arc, I think, was American Gothic. So we thought the first season is loosely adapted from American Gothic, and so it takes some cues from that. But having said that, even in the first season, we've adapted a couple of the issues from the Delano Hellblazer later on. So we're sort of dipping in and out. We've got some episodes are sort of kind of wholly created out of new stuff, and we're But I would say if we're lucky enough to stay on a few seasons, you'll see more of the seminal story arcs, at least versions of them, like Dangerous Habits and things roll out.
I have a Madame crush on Harold Perrineau, and I'm glad to see him cast as Manny the Angel. So how did you go about getting him involved?
I've been a fan of Harold's for a long time. Since Oz, I think he's an amazing actor. I loved him on Lost, Sons of Anarchy. And when we were creating the character of Manny, he was really our first choice. And initially, it's funny because the network wasn't sure whether or not he could sort of bring the darkness or sort of the gravitas. And Harold came in, and there was a bit of an audition process that we had to go through, but he stuck with it. He's amazing, and you will see his character continue to blossom. You'll see a lot more of him as the season goes on, particularly around episodes 7, 8, and 9. There's a lot of, we start turning over a few cards with this character. He's also a great guy.
Because there are people who haven't really heard of Constantine before, they've gone out, I'm sure they're now going out to research it, and some of them may be like, oh, there was a movie made about it. So how do you go about making sure that you differentiate yourself from that movie, where people may go watch that movie and go, I don't know if I dig this that much?
Well, the first thing we did was we cast an actual British actor to play a British character, so that was one choice we made. I think at this point, fans are used to the idea of there being different iterations of things. There have been different iterations of Batman before. There was a Flash series in the 80s. There's a Flash series now. But I would say that our show hews more closely to the source material, to the original comic books, perhaps, than the film did, taking nothing away from the film. And I just know that so far, at least, the people that have seen the show pretty much feel like Matt, he really does embody John Constantine. It feels like he leapt off the page.
What are some of the things that you're hoping to keep from the original comics to try to bring in that audience a little tighter?
Well, first of all, just the fact that I love the character. I love the character since he was first introduced by Alan Moore. He's a jerk. He's an asshole, and he's not a hero. And he's, we joke around like if he can say a spell, he'll say a spell. If that doesn't work, he might try to kick somebody in the balls. If that doesn't work, he might run. And it's fun to have a character like that who's saving the world, as opposed to, I've done a lot of the sort of classic spandex costume characters, and it's nice to have someone that's a true anti-hero. And so we've absolutely preserved that. But there are a lot of elements from the comic books that people will recognize. Papa Midnight rolls in episode 3, and he's a recurring character, and a lot of the other. You don't have to have read the comics to enjoy the show, but if you've read the comic books, you'll recognize 7 or 8 characters, at least within the first season.
Are you crossing over with Arrow or Flash?
No. Primarily because even though they're Warner Brothers shows, we're all on different networks. So we're in a different corner of the universe. We're in the occult universe, so there are some other DC occult characters that are showing up in the first season, so not just characters from Hellblazer. We've announced Jim Corrigan ultimately becomes the Spectre. He shows up, and Felix Faust, who's a character that shows up in the DC universe, he shows up later on.
Anybody from Justice League?
Possibly.
I have a question. What about spin-off, like Lady Constantine or Lucifer?
Lucifer, will show up eventually in a slightly different iteration. There's an iteration of him that was also introduced in the Hellblazer comics, and he may be showing up in that. Lady Constantine, we don't have any immediate plans, but I would love to do some flashback episodes with that character. That would be fantastic. Maybe in the second season.
Because you said that you're not going to be crossing over with Flash and Arrow, but you kind of are, not that overseeing, but you're kind of in a bunch of different parts of the live action DC universe stuff. So do you think like there'll be like an NBC corner of it? There's now the CW corner of it. So like you have an NBC shared universe.
If the show is fortunate enough to take hold and continue, that's a possibility. Yes.
The comic had a great punk sensibility. I noticed in the pilot you have him listening to 80s punk. Are you going to have a tight punk soundtrack, or maybe have him playing in a band?
The score is by Bear McCreary, who does my show Da Vinci's Demons and also did Battlestar Galactica, Walking Dead. We do have music in it, punk music. I think we've got some Ramones in there with some Buzzcocks. I was pleased to say that I don't know that there are many network shows that have licensed a Sex Pistols song, which shows up in episode 3. And so that's kind of our nod, even though the character was created in the 80s, he still listens to that kind of music. And we reference his punk, he's in, again, episode 3, he used to be in a punk band called Mucous Membrane, and we reference that in the 3rd episode. So yes,
okay.
To answer your question.
Thank you.
Sorry guys, last question.
When's Threshold coming back?
Never, unfortunately, probably.
Sorry.
Too early, too soon.
You did some recuts on the pilot. Why did you make those recuts? And now that they are made, do you think any of the changes that you made will come back later?
No.
Okay.
It's not uncommon to make adjustments when you're doing a pilot. That's why you make a pilot. So the episode that we're airing tonight even differs from the version that we showed at San Diego Comic-Con. But that is now the definitive version. We won't be changing it anymore. We're done. We're happy with the changes we made. I don't think we'll be revisiting any things that were in the previous iteration.
Have you attached the Blade reboot?
I am not. Sorry. I did 3 movies and a TV show. That was enough.
Will we have Swamp Thing guest star?
It's not impossible. I will say that's a harder character, costume, special effects makeup character to pull off on TV. We would have to make sure we could not make it look goofy, but it's not impossible.
In your Supernatural TV universes, who wins, Constantine or Blade?
In a bar fight, Blade, but if Constantine could cheat, probably Constantine. Yes, and he would. So there's your answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.